What's going on, everybody? What is going on? It is Tuesday, October 29th, 2024, and we are back with another live here on the Torian Rain Reloaded channel. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to go ahead, excuse me, and hit that like button, hit that share button, hit the subscribe button if you are new to the channel. Shout out to everybody that is here. Shout out to everybody who is a member. Shout out to all of the members, the people over on Patreon. And if you are over on Patreon, you will be getting a new video tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And also, if you are a member, y'all probably seen it already, but tomorrow for my members, we will be doing a day, or I should say the night before Halloween stream for members only. I'm doing it the day before or the night before because I won't be available the day of it to actually do it because I'm going to be on another channel or live on another channel on that day at that time. So we're going to have it tomorrow. If y'all remember when I did my Michael Jackson tribute stream, then y'all already know that this one's going to be fun. It's going to kind of be like a laid back, kickback type of thing. And we'll go from there. But if you are a member, you are already locked in. But if you aren't, you might want to join because that's where we're going to be at tomorrow at 6 p.m. But let me go ahead and shout out everybody who was here so far. First off, shout out to Firebat, and make sure y'all say happy birthday to Firebat because Firebat said today is their birthday. So shout out to you, Firebat, and happy birthday to you. Wishing you many, many more. We have Barbara Johnson, Miss Nisi, Derry B, Wallow J, Miss Renee, Brother Man to you, Tawana Cook, Anita Harrell, Hacksign KT, Jesse Paris. Speaking of Jesse, I hope the campaign is going good out there. I think I read in a comment. I think it might have been in Rob's chat that said that you was on the ballot out there. So hopefully everything is going good for you out there with that. We got Miriam R. Who else do we have? KC Malone, Rocco Moro, Jago the Rogue, Celebrity Style Magazine, DSM Sinister. Who else do we have on here? Jonathan Gonzalez, Don P. And that is it so far. But yeah, I'm not going to drop the link today for this particular topic. This is one of those topics, but you can rest assured that if you are a member of the channel, tomorrow I definitely will be dropping the link for that particular stream. But again, you have to be a member. I'll mention it again at the end of the stream, just for those who didn't catch it in the beginning. And Miss Nisi made sure to tell me that her membership is paid up and she is up to date. I can see who the members are because I can see the symbol next to your name. But today we will be talking about Mike Jeffries. In case y'all don't know, Mike Jeffries was the former CEO of that clothing store, Abercrombie and Fitch. It's a very, or I don't know if it's still it. Well, back then, especially in the early 2000s, it was a very popular clothing store. You mostly saw it when you went to the mall. And I'm going to be honest, there was nothing appealing to me about that store because I knew who that store was geared towards. That was a store that was geared mainly to young Caucasian males, mainly those who are in their teens or their early 20s. That's who they were geared towards. One of the earliest things I remember hearing about Abercrombie and Fitch, and I'm sure y'all have heard it as well, is that it was some racial bias going on there in a couple of areas. One, their hiring practices. And it was a thing at a time where there was a thing of they didn't really hire a lot of Black employees or any non-white employees for that matter. And if they did, they typically did not work out in the front. Like they had them mainly in the back. Another major one, of course, is Abercrombie and Fitch typically uses male models to promote, or at least they did at that time, to promote their brand. And they didn't really have any Black models. It was usually your typical young white male model. And a lot of people was like, okay, so what's really going on here? And that's what I remembered the most about it. And as a matter of fact, there's a whole documentary on Netflix about Abercrombie and Fitch. The name of the documentary is called White Hot. It's some words after that, but White Hot is like the main title. So if you go on there on the Netflix app, and type it in, you should be able to find it. I think it came out in 2022, so it's not an old documentary. But that's really what I knew about that store. What we did not know, however, is what came out about Mike Jeffries, the CEO, most recently. And man, oh man, when I tell you this is like this is a whole rabbit hole right here. I mean, just that. Excuse me. So we're going to go ahead now and get into this because this story is absolutely crazy. And I have to also give a shout out to this channel. Y'all probably heard me mention this channel before. It's a channel called The Mo You Know. It's an extension of a channel called Mo.J, who is someone who I've had on my channel before. I've been on their channel as well. He did like a very good, thorough background look into Mike Jeffries. And when I tell you, every word that he read about this dude, by the end of it, I said, I feel like I need to take a shower because I feel dirty just listening to the stuff that was being read. And when I talk about stuff that was being read, I'm talking about stuff that was from like years ago and all kinds of stuff. But it's absolutely insane. And I'm not going to lie to you. When I first saw Mike Jeffries' picture, I thought it was Gary Busey, the actor. I mean, he looks just like him. I mean, the face, of course, those big, gigantic, gargantuan teeth, but it wasn't him, but it looks just like him. So the first article we're going to read from is from the Associated Press. It says former Abercrombie and Fitch chief executive Mike Jeffries arrested on federal trafficking charges. And it's dated October 22nd, 2024. So this is all still fairly recent. This is all the stuff I'm reading came out last week. Former Abercrombie and Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries, his romantic partner, and a third man were arrested Tuesday on charges of luring men into drug-laced, outlandish, and coercive sex parties by dangling the promise of modeling for the retailer's once-defining beefcake ads. For almost 20 years, Jeffries, his partner Matthew Smith, and their employee James Jacobson used Jeffries' status, wealth, and a web of household staffers to fulfill the couple's sexual desires and kept it all a secret, according to a federal indictment. Sexually exploiting vulnerable human beings is a crime, and doing so by dangling dreams of a future in fashion or modeling is no different. Brooklyn-based U.S. Attorney General Breon Peace said at a news conference he called the case a warning to anyone who thinks they can exploit and coerce others by using the so-called casting couch system. Now, casting couch system. Who in here has ever heard of that phrase, the casting couch? You should have, because I've mentioned it before. When Harvey was over here, he talked about it. But that's a system that they use out there in California, mainly in Hollywood, in order for people to get jobs, excuse me, out there in hopes of becoming a big star. And it was literally something called the casting couch. I think y'all can pretty much put together what went down on that couch. The charges echo sexual misconduct accusations made in a civil case in the media in recent years. Lawyers representing Jeffries in a federal sex trafficking lawsuit have said he vehemently denies those allegations. Jeffries wore a broad smile but didn't comment Tuesday as he left a federal courthouse in West Palm Beach, Florida, after being released on a $10 million bond. His attorney, Brian Bieber, also didn't comment. Smith, a dual U.S.-British citizen, was ordered detained after prosecutors raised concerns that he might flee the country. His lawyers, Joseph Nascimento and David Rabin, and Bieber said by email they would respond to the allegations in court when appropriate. Jacobson didn't address the charges during his court appearance in St. Paul, Minnesota, other than to say, "I understand what they claim," and didn't comment as he left the courthouse on a $500,000 bond. Jacobson has said previously that he didn't engage in or know about any coercive, deceptive, or forceful behavior. Messages seeking comment were sent to his attorney. The three defendants are charged with sex trafficking and interstate prostitution involving 15 unnamed accusers. The case is the latest sex crime prosecution of a prominent and wealthy man from Sean Diddy Combs to Harvey Weinstein, accused of abusing his position as a star or possible star maker, though the status of the cases and important aspects of the allegations vary. An early accuser of the late Jeffrey Epstein said he groped her during a 1997 meeting arranged as a modeling interview for the Victoria's Secret's catalog. According to the indictment, Jacobson, Jeffries, and Smith paid for dozens of men to travel to engage in sex with them and other men in New York and at hotels in England, France, Italy, Morocco, and St. Bart's between 2008 and 2015. The sometimes graphic indictment describes sexual bacchanals. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but something tells me I'm not. In which the recruited men were given drugs, lubricant, condoms, costumes, sex toys, and sometimes erection-inducing penile injections that caused painful and hours-long reactions. I'm telling you, by the time I get through all of this, y'all gonna be wanting to take a shower because this is filthy here. The men weren't told ahead of time what sexual practices they'd be expected to engage in. Indeed, some itineraries simply resembled those for models' photo shoots, and they were required to sign non-disclosure agreements or NDAs, the indictment said. The defendants duped the men, at least one as young as 19, and some of them former Abercrombie store workers, into thinking they'd get Abercrombie modeling gigs, or that refusing to engage in the sexual encounters could harm their prospects, prosecutors said in court. They said the men typically underwent quote unquote tryouts by having sex first with Jacobson, who acted as a recruiter for his bosses. P said at the news conference that the prosecutors have had a quote lot of evidence, including travel records, financial documents, and testimony from accusers and witnesses. Jeffries left Abercrombie and Fitch in 2014. The New Albany, New Ohio-based company, which also encompasses Hollister, declined to comment on his arrest. Prosecutors don't allege that the company resources or property were used in the alleged sex scheme. Abercrombie last year said it had hired an outside law firm to conduct an independent investigation after the BBC reported on similar allegations from a dozen men. Founded as a hunting and outdoor goods store in 1892, Abercrombie and Fitch was a retail also ran when Jeffries arrived a century later. He was credited with transforming it into a darling of the turn of the millennium teen mall culture, known for its nouveau preppy aesthetic and sexy marketing that features shirtless, muscular male models. Jeffries talked openly about how the company went after attractive kids who could fit into its clothes. One could even argue now that with all this stuff coming out here, that they said this store in 1892 when it got founded was a hunting and outdoor store. But then when he came along, look at what he turned it into, and now look at what they're going after him for. So they're looking at this as a possible breeding ground for his degeneracy. Those remarks, which also basically says this is how he was going into being the CEO of this company, those remarks alienated customers who didn't fit, literally or otherwise. The brand's image and the 2008 financial crisis and subsequent recession prompted some teens to look less expensive. Fast fashion chains. By the time Jeffries left, the company's sales were slumping. A few months after his departure, the retailer announced it would stop using sexualized photos and marketing materials in its shops and calling store staffers models. The company told regional managers it wouldn't tolerate discrimination based on body type or physical attractiveness. Abercrombie has rebounded in recent years. Understand when they say, where is it at? When it says he talked openly about how the company went at, not that part. Where is it at? Let me see if I can find it. Oh, where is it? I just read it. It might be this one right here. That wouldn't tolerate discrimination based on body type or physical attractiveness. Basically, they're saying that, like I told you, if you looked at Abercrombie and Fitch and how it advertised itself back in the day, you can tell who their primary audience was or who they were going after. I remember one time when I was young and I was going in the mall because, you know, the way Abercrombie and Fitch is set up, you don't have to go all the way in the store. And it was always a dimly lit store. Like you can just go in like off the side and look on the walls, and you can look and tell who they were advertising to based on who the models were up on the wall and the type of clothing that they would sell, even down to the people that were there. And every time I went past that Abercrombie and Fitch, it would probably be a different person there, but they all had a similar look to them. You know how sometimes you walk past and go into a store, it's quote unquote diverse. Not with them. Theirs always looked exactly the same. So when that stuff came out about them, what I talked about in the beginning, I said, there it is. I knew something was off. But yeah, I never ever would have. When I was younger, I did not beg my parents to say, "Can you give me something from some Abercrombie and Fitch?" They probably don't even know. They probably at the time didn't even know what an Abercrombie and Fitch was. That wasn't my style anyway. So I mean, it is what it is. So that's the first article right there. Let me see something. So this next one right here is coming from AOL. It was posted a few days later. And it's just, see what I mean? Look at him. Don't he look like Gary Busey? For those of y'all who didn't see a picture of him before, he looks just like Gary Busey. But anyway, ex-Abercrombie CEO pleads not guilty. Ex-Abercrombie and Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries has pleaded not guilty to charges for sex trafficking and interstate prostitution. Lawyers entered the plea on behalf of Mr. Jeffries in New York Federal Court on Long Island as he sat alongside them in court in a navy blue suit, his face expressionless. Sitting just one row behind Mr. Jeffries was his alleged middleman, James Jacobson, who also pleaded not guilty during a hearing right after the ex-CEO. Mr. Jeffries' British-American partner, Matthew Smith, who faces the same charges, is expected to appear in court, New York court, at a later date. Federal prosecutors have said the men used force, fraud, and coercion to engage in, quote, violent and exploitive sexual acts. The FBI launched a probe into the former Abercrombie and Fitch CEO last year after a BBC investigation found several men who accused Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Smith of sexually abusing him at events they hosted in their New York residences and hotels around the world. During a 10-minute court hearing on Friday in Long Island, New York Judge Stephen Tishon told Mr. Jeffries he would be under a house arrest, adding that he was only allowed to leave his homes, peep that, homes, as in more than one, in New York and Florida for medical appointments, visits with his lawyers, and religious events. Mr. Jeffries posted a $10 million bond using his house on Fisher Island in New York as collateral. The hearing was attended by both Mr. Jeffries' son and wife, who had to agree to use their house for the bond as she owns the property as well. Now, peep that. Now, let me read to y'all that part again. That part I caught y'all off guard a little bit. The hearing was attended by both Mr. Jeffries' son and wife, who had to agree to use their house for the bond as she owns the property as well. So this James Jacobson, who they call his partner, is this like a business partner or another type of partner? Because they don't go into details of what type of partner this guy is, and now knowing this guy has a wife and a child. So what kind of partner is this James Jacobson? See, Miss Nisi, your response is the exact one that I knew I was going to get after reading that part. So this James Jacobson, business partner or both types? Okay, I kind of figured that because they didn't label it as a business partner, which if he was, that's what they would have said he was. But just partners is saying, okay, there it is. So James Jacobson is that partner and business partner, while Mike Jeffries also still has a wife. What kind of business? What kind of arrangement? You know what? This is just going over my head, y'all. This is too much for me. So let me continue. The judge asked his wife Susan if she understood that their house could be foreclosed if Mr. Jeffries failed to show up to court. She told the judge she understood. One of Mr. Jeffries' alleged victims, David Bradbury, who previously told the BBC about the alleged abuse, sat in the front row of the courtroom as the charges against the former CEO were read. Mr. Jeffries did not respond to questions from reporters on Friday afternoon as he walked out of the courtroom and stepped into a black SUV. The BBC's investigation found a sophisticated operation involving a middleman, Mr. Jacobson, and a network of recruiters tasked with finding men for these events. Prosecutors unsealed an indictment against the three men shortly after Mr. Jeffries and his partner were arrested in West Palm Beach, Florida on Tuesday. Mr. Jacobson was arrested in Wisconsin. Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Jacobson were released on bond. Mr. Smith was detained. Prosecutors say Mr. Jeffries and his partner preyed upon dozens of vulnerable young men seeking careers in fashion and modeling and exploited them for their own sexual pleasure between 2008 and 2015. The indictment lists 15 victims who are not named. The three men could face up to life in prison if convicted of sex trafficking and up to 20 years in prison if convicted of interstate prostitution. I need to know, are they going to make a documentary about him just based on that? Will there be a movie made to display all of his trips, all of his endeavors? And I'm talking about endeavors while when it was first going on, even up until it wasn't. U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Breon Peace, alleged on Tuesday that Mr. Jeffrey spent a prolific amount of money to traffic men to engage in sex acts with him and his partner while staffing security guarded the event. Mr. Peace said the couple hired Mr. Jacobson to recruit men for the couple, flying them to his home in New York and other locations where they were pressured to consume alcohol, Viagra, and muscle relaxants, or injected with them against their will. In its initial investigation, the BBC spoke to 12 men who described attending or organizing events involving sex acts with Mr. Jeffries, age 80, and his British partner, Mr. Smith, 61. The 8 men who attended the event said they were recruited by a middleman who the BBC identified as James Jacobson. You know what this also reminds me of? Nexium with Keith Raniere and Allison Mack. Because I'll put it to you in perspective. Mike Jeffries would be Keith Raniere and James Jacobson would be Allison Mack, because basically Allison Mack was the recruiter and Keith Raniere was the head. That's how this plays out to me. I don't think there was any branding involved like Nexium, but you know, there's always a chain of command, and that's literally how it is. Then more men came forward last month. Some alleged Mr. Jeffries' assistants had injected them in their genitals with what they were told was liquid Viagra. After the BBC's initial investigation was published last year, Abercrombie and Fitch announced it was opening an independent investigation into the allegations. Mr. Jeffries served as the CEO of the company from 1992 until 2014, when he stepped down following declining sales and left with a retirement package valued at around $25 million. And he is next set to appear in court on December 12th, 2024. They need to do a thorough investigation of this man, leading all the way back to when he first got this job or this role as CEO. So if they got to go back to 1992, I suggest that they do that, because I'm willing to bet it's even more than just what's coming out with what we see right now. It's probably way more. Because this isn't one of those things that you decide to just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to get the person to do this, and this is how we're going to do it. You don't just wake up and do that. That's planned. And it takes a while to plan that. So, and think about this. This guy was the CEO of a big fashion brand company. Imagine if you had to go to some kind of an event and he was there and you have no idea that you are rubbing elbows or talking to a man that is apparently doing all of this in the background. That would shock anybody. Imagine the people that probably talked to this guy on a regular basis, had no clue this was going on, and this is coming out, and they probably like, wow. They are probably blown. They're probably mind blown. I know I would be. Wallow Jazz said, man, taking a ish in that photo. And Miss Needs said, cat teeth gargoyle. I'll tell you, them teeth are crazy. Them teeth, man, them teeth can bite through steel. But we're about to go on to the next article. Ironically, this article is coming directly from the BBC. And it's titled "How My Investigation Led to Sex Trafficking Charges Against Ex-Abercrombie Boss." So it sounds like they're talking to somebody who used to work for him. Let's see what they're talking about in here. In a federal courtroom in New York, for the first time, I'm face to face with Mike Jeffries, the multi-millionaire ex-fashion boss I spent 3 years investigating for the BBC. He stares at me directly, lips pursed and chin raised as he sits before the judge. As a result of my reporting, he was arrested this week by the FBI and charged with running an international sex trafficking and prostitution business along with his British partner, Matthew Smith, and their middleman, James Jacobson. Authorities acted after hearing my podcast series, The Abercrombie Guys, in which I unearthed evidence that Mr. Jeffries, age 80, and Mr. Smith, age 61, had been at the center of a sophisticated global operation involving a network of recruiters and a middleman scouting young men for sex. As CEO of teen retailer Abercrombie and Fitch, Mike Jeffries was described to me as an eccentric and superstitious genius with his highlighted hair and penchant for flip-flops and plastic surgery. Well, clearly, definitely on the plastic surgery. We can look at that man's face and tell that's not the original product. Personified the youthful all-American brand he created. But now his hair white, his fillers dissolved, and wearing an ankle monitor, he seemed the shadow of the mogul said to have used his power and strength while in charge to abuse vulnerable models. U.S. prosecutors say he and the other accused used force, fraud, and coercion to make men engage in violent and exploitive sex acts from at least 2008 to 2015. Now, peep that. That's interesting wording. At least 2008. So that means it's probably going back further than that. Remember, he was the CEO from 1992 to 2014. And I find it interesting that they mentioned 2015 because that's the year after he was no longer the CEO. So that means even after he had stepped down as CEO, he was still engaging in those acts for at least the next year, or at least part of the following year. If convicted, they face a maximum of life in prison. The shoulder slouch, Mr. Jeffries was blank as his lawyer entered his plea of not guilty. His life partner, Matthew Smith, a UK citizen, is yet to appear in court. He's considered a flight risk by authorities and is currently detained until trial. And they even gave a warning here, y'all. This is a warning. They gave a warning right here at the top before going to the next half of this article. Warning, this story contains descriptions of sexual acts. And it's crazy because we just read through 3 articles right here and they listed some of the stuff and didn't give a disclaimer, but this one did. So I'm curious now, what in the world are we about to read? No, brother, man, he is not locked up. He has an ankle monitor. He's basically on house arrest. They say he can only leave for medical appointments, any religious reasons like going to church, and it was something else. But other than that, he has to stay in one of his homes. If he travels, he can only go straight to that particular home because they say he has a home in West Palm Beach, Florida, and his home in New York. When I think back to how my own investigation began in January 2021, I never imagined it would lead to this moment. During the pandemic, I was researching the fashion industry when I stumbled across a cryptic Instagram comment written by a former model named Barrett Paul. He was part of a group discussing how they felt abuse against male models was being ignored. We've seen it happen with Me Too. How about us too? One wrote. We soon got on the phone. After an hour of talking, he said he felt he could trust me with a secret he'd never really shared before. Okay, y'all, I think this is going to be like the meat and potatoes of everything right here. Everything else that we just read was like warming us up to what we're about to hear. So it's about to get crazy. It's about to go crazy. It's probably like the darkest experience I've ever dealt with, he told me. They had someone come and shave me, like my whole body, because that's how they like the boys. So basically, notice they said the boys. Now, keep this in mind. These were like maybe late teens, early 20s, but they said shaved like boys. So that means they already had a wild fantasy in their head of how they wanted these older males to look. Y'all better smash that like button. In 2011, then age 22, now look at that, he's 22 at the time. Barrett said he'd been referred by an older model who was a close friend to meet a mysterious middleman. He described as having missing nose covered with a snakeskin patch. He said this man, who I later identified through the phone and property records as James Jacobson, had made him perform a sex act as a quote tryout before sending him to Mike Jeffries, then CEO and chairman of Abercrombie and Fitch, and his British partner. Barrett claimed that for years, the duo had been throwing elaborate sex events at their palatial home in the Hamptons. He said the one he had attended was facilitated by chaperones in Abercrombie polos and flip-flops, carrying silver platters of alcohol, poppers, and lube. And this is a picture of the Barrett Paul, the person that's telling the story. What Barrett told me sparked my initial 2-year investigation. I traveled across America from the suburbs of Ohio to the desert of Palm Springs, tracking down men affected and confronting those involved, including the middleman himself. Usually, when I'm investigating, I can find a few loose threads to pull at by searching newspaper archives, court records, or social media. But there was absolutely nothing in the public domain about these allegations. So I took an old school approach, piecing together my own trail through word of mouth, knocking on doors, and sending handwritten letters to potential sources. I traced and contacted hundreds of people, including former Abercrombie and Fitch models and Mr. Jeffries' ex-household staff, earning trust over months. Then a massive breakthrough. Barrett Paul had an old iPad that wouldn't turn on, but we got it fixed. Through that, I obtained an itinerary and flight ticket corroborating the event he attended in the Hamptons. It was sent by the middleman, James Jacobson, and contained some first names and numbers of others involved. I later recovered more than a dozen of these itineraries from different sources, finally giving me concrete leads, but it took me months to figure out their roles, not wanting to tip the wrong person off while I was still in evidence gathering mode. Many men were wary of speaking. Two accused me of being a quote spy for Mike Jeffries, initially fearful of his money and clout. I too became increasingly paranoid after I began facing hundreds of hacking attempts each day from unknown IP addresses. I'm sure they were trying to hack his stuff so they could try to delete what he found. We were right to be cautious. In their indictment unsealed on Tuesday, prosecutors said Mike Jeffries had employed a full-service security company to oversee non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, conduct background checks, and surveil and intimidate anyone who threatened to expose them. I have since spoken with more than 20 men who attended or helped organize these events for Mr. Jeffries and his partner, Matthew Smith. Some, like Luke, an inspiring model who told me he was recruited under the guise of attending an Abercrombie and Fitch photo shoot, said they had been misled and not told sex was involved. Now, you want to know what's interesting is, as I'm reading it, because these guys had dreams of wanting to become a model, or led there under false pretenses. We always hear about this happening in the modeling world, more so when it comes to the women, because the women in the modeling world is very female dominant. But you rarely hear the stories about what happens to the men that go on in this world. That's probably why stuff like this rarely gets talked about. How did this operation stay hidden for so long? The answer I reached was that the shame some men felt talking about the same-sex abuse had silenced them as effectively as any NDA. Some told me they had felt like taking their lives. Others completely broken. In many instances, I was the first person they had confided in. One man, who I'm calling Alex, broke down as he told me he believed that he was drugged and violated by an unknown assailant at an opulent event hosted in Marrakesh, for which dozens of men had been flown in. He believed this would lead to him contracting HIV. Jeffries was the kingpin, he told me at the time. Without him, none of this could have happened. Oh, we finally see a picture of Matthew Smith. So this is Mike Jeffries' partner. But it says this is from the 90s. We can clearly tell this is the 90s because we can look at the quality of the picture and what he has on. Ahead of publication, I work with BBC Panorama to meticulously fact check my evidence. This involves speaking with those inside the operation, including James Jacobson. When podcast producer Ruth Evans and I knocked on his door one sweltering day in rural Wisconsin in August 2023, he sank onto his steps, put his head in his hands, and swore. He asked me for a deal. Leave my name out and I will tell you everything, he said. Mr. Jacobson repeated this request dozens of times the following day when he agreed to meet for coffee. We spoke for 2 hours. At times, it was bizarre. He admired my shorthand, commented on my British accent, and seemed to patronize me, calling me sweetheart. He's a former actor and at one point put on a bunch of accents and pretended to wear a cloak, trying to convince me he could do an anonymous interview. But he was charismatic too, and joked about his missing nose, saying the only job he could get these days was as a Bond villain. Eventually, Mr. Jacobson said he was just doing his job and hadn't spoken to Mr. Jeffries or Mr. Smith since 2015. Ultimately, he didn't get his deal, and in court, he again sat with his head in his hands as his lawyer entered a not guilty plea. After we published in October 2023, some of the men in the story took legal action against Mike Jeffries, Matthew Smith, and Abercrombie and Fitch, who they are suing for violation, assault, and sex trafficking. All deny wrongdoing. The lawsuit claims it's likely that more than 100 men were abused during Mr. Jeffries' tenure. Sources also began contacting me to say they had been approached by law enforcement. We were not involved in FBI's investigation, which was totally independent of mine. Protecting sources is integral to my work, so it would be the men's decision to talk. Looking back, there were moments I considered giving up. I initially faced dead end after dead end, but the more I heard, the more I felt a duty to bring this to light for the first time and hold those involved to account. More than 2 years on from our first conversation, I asked Barrett Paul why he decided to speak to me. He started crying and said, my gut said, trust her, tell her your story, and maybe, just maybe, announcing the charges, U.S. Attorney Breon Peace said to anyone who thinks they can exploit and coerce others by using the so-called casting couch system, this case should serve as a warning. Prepare to trade that couch for a bed in federal prison. Oh, and by the way, y'all, this woman's name is Rihanna Croxford. She's the one that did the investigation that got Mike Jeffries and his cohorts arrested. So this is the woman right here. That's yeah, this is her because I remember seeing her name at the top of the article as the person who's authoring what I'm reading. So this is her. And that's the end of the article. So shout out to her. She's the one that put in the legwork to blow this case open. Let me see what y'all talking about in the chat. Johnson said, protect the sister. Oh yeah. She not only blew the case open on just anybody, she blew it up on a very powerful individual, and you know how they get down. What's going on, Seven? Oh yeah, definitely. I listen. I had plans to talk about this, and I'm glad I waited to the day to do it because, like I said, some stuff like more. As time goes on, more and more stuff comes out because this article was posted yesterday. Was it yesterday or like 2 days ago? And remember, the story broke last week. So if I had jumped on this when it immediately happened, I would not have thought to come back and look for this. So it's a good thing that I waited like a good week and some change to talk about this. Brother Mincy says, I don't see anything that says that she's in protected cut, but I'm gonna put it like this: if something, and God forbid something does happen to her, they're gonna immediately look right to Mike Jeffries and his partners. So nothing better happened to her, you know? So she's definitely, when this thing goes to trial, they're definitely going to have her on that stand for sure. She's a key and a star witness because she like through her, they were able to have all of this come to the surface. So shout out to her, Rihanna Croxford. Shout out to her. Okay, y'all, we have one more article to go through, but that article was very revealing. And shout out to her. So this last article is coming out from CEO Today and was posted yesterday. Barbara says there's a lot of this activity going on there. Reveal. Oh, of course. Of course. I feel like even with what I'm reading right now to y'all, it's just scratching the surface. I'm sure this thing goes deep. So when this thing goes to trial, because I'm almost certain that it will, they going to uncover a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot. So this is coming from CEO Today, and it says Abercrombie and Fitch cuts ties with former CEO amid shocking sex trafficking allegations. It says in a dramatic turn of events, Abercrombie and Fitch has severed all ties with its former CEO Mike Jeffries following his stunning arrest on federal sex trafficking charges. The iconic retailer, long associated with aspirational youth culture, is now grappling with the fallout from a scandal that could reshape its public image forever. The fashion world is reeling as Abercrombie releases a bold statement pledging full cooperation with law enforcement as this harrowing legal drama unfolds. See, they have to cut ties with him because even though he's no longer the CEO, he still had a connection to the company. He was probably still getting some kind of a stipend. He might have had a position on the board somewhere, so he wasn't completely gone, just not in the CEO position. But now they cut him off completely. A statement of accountability. This is Abercrombie and Fitch wasted no time in distancing itself from Jeffries, releasing a powerful statement declaring, "We are appalled and disgusted by the alleged behavior of Mr. Jeffries, whose employment with Abercrombie and Fitch Company ended nearly 10 years ago. The company reiterated its commitment to creating a values-driven organization, proclaiming for close to a decade, we have successfully transformed our brands and culture. We have zero tolerance for abuse, harassment, or discrimination of any kind." Despite the company's attempt at damage control, Abercrombie shares plunged approximately 5% in response to the shocking news, raising questions about the retailer's future amid the storm. And that's crazy because they dealt with a plunge back a couple years ago before all of this came out, and they was coming back on the rise, and now they hit another snag because of this. In the past, models have often faced immense pressure to conform to unrealistic standards of beauty and behavior, with little recourse for those who experience exploitation or abuse. Jeffrey's tenure at Abercrombie was marked by an obsession with an idealized image of youth and beauty, which may have created an environment which such behavior could flourish unchecked. So that's telling you right there. The reason why you saw the aesthetic in Abercrombie and Fitch all these years was because of him. That is why the image of the store and the brand looked the way that it did. It was because of him. Fashion insiders and advocates for change are now calling for more stringent regulations and accountability, measures to protect aspiring models and ensure ethical practices in the industry. Organizations like the Model Alliance have been at the forefront of advocating for workers' rights, pushing for contracts that prioritize the safety and well-being of the models. They emphasize the importance of fostering a culture where young talent can thrive without fear of harassment or exploitation. As the Abercrombie scandal unfolds, it serves as a stark reminder of the need for transformation within the fashion industry. Brands must not only distance themselves from past misconduct, but also commit to creating a safer, more inclusive environment. The public's response to the scandal may ultimately shape the industry's future, pushing it toward greater accountability and ethical practices. We shall see, but I'm not holding my breath For Abercrombie and Fitch, the path forward will require genuine action, not just words. As consumers demand transparency and integrity, the retailer must ensure that it stands as a beacon of change rather than a relic of the past. The eyes of the industry are upon them, and how they respond could redefine not only their brand, but the entire landscape of fashion. Prosecutors detailed how many of the victims were not just young and impressionable, but also financially desperate. Many of the victims, at least one of whom was as young as 19, were financially vulnerable and aspired to become models in the fashion industry. Indeed, some of the men they recruited had previously worked at Abercrombie stores or modeled for Abercrombie. What's going on, Mo? Hey, Mo, I actually just shouted out your channel at the beginning about that article that you read, and I was telling the people how that article you read from 2006 made us all feel dirty, like we needed to go take a nice hot shower after just listening to that. But that was crazy. I'm not going to read it on here because it's a lengthy article. That article probably took about almost an hour to get through. It was a very filthy, deplorable, and disgusting detailed article. It says, as if, oh my bad, I almost about to miss a whole paragraph. Jeffries' tenure at Abercrombie was already marred by controversy. Under his leadership, the brand became infamous for its sexually charged marketing that often prioritized superficial beauty over substance. However, the true extent of the abuse practices allegedly perpetrated by Jeffries only began to surface following a groundbreaking BBC investigation last year. The revelations were explosive, prompting swift backlash against Jeffries and the brand he once helmed. As if the allegations weren't shocking enough, the plot thickened when a man stepped forward suing Jeffries and Abercrombie for past victimization during a supposed modeling recruitment in the 2010s. Federal prosecutors didn't waste any time. Nearly a year later, they charged Jeffries with serious offenses. His attorney, Brian Bieber, claimed they would respond to the charges in court rather than the media suggesting a fierce legal battle is on the horizon. We will respond in detail to the allegations after the indictment is unsealed and when appropriate, Bieber stated, hinting at a strategy that will likely unfold in the courtroom rather than in the court of public opinion. Jeffries' departure in 2014 came after a prolonged decline in Abercrombie sales. However, under the leadership of new CEO Fred Horowitz, the brand has undergone a significant transformation. Today, Abercrombie is recognized as one of the best performing apparel companies, emphasizing inclusivity and diversity, a far cry from the exclusive, often elitist ethos of its past. The company now boasts a wider range of sizes and styles designed for curvier bodies, clearly moving away from the narrow vision that once defined it. Abercrombie's marketing reflects this newfound ethos, celebrating a diverse customer base rather than a singular, quote, ideal image. In light of these distressing allegations, Abercrombie expressed solidarity with the victims who bravely came forward to share their stories. Speaking up and coming forward is not easy, the spokesperson said. Our thoughts remain with those who have bravely raised their voices as part of the federal investigation. As the legal drama unfolds, Abercrombie and Fitch must now navigate this precarious situation, balancing its efforts to redefine its brand with the very real impact of these allegations on its image and market performance. The Abercrombie scandal serves as a stark reminder to the dark underbelly of the fashion industry where power dynamics often blur ethical lines. As the case progresses, industry insiders and consumers alike will be watching closely to see how Abercrombie responds, not just in terms of public relations, but also regarding accountability for those involved. The fashion landscape may never be the same again, and Abercrombie and Fitch must work diligently to reclaim its narrative and restore trust among its consumers. As it confronts these challenges head on, the question remains, can Abercrombie truly turn the page on this sordid chapter and emerge stronger, or will the shadow of its past continue to haunt its future? The unfolding events highlight the urgent need for greater transparency and ethical conduct within the fashion industry as consumers demand accountability from the brands they support. Will Abercrombie rise to the occasion, or will it be forever tainted by the actions of its past? Only time will tell. And that is the last article right there, y'all. Man, this story is crazy. And y'all, like I said, if y'all aren't familiar with them, hey Mo, put your I don't know if you near your computer right now, Mo, but put the link to that particular live in the chat that live in particular where you're reading that article. And if y'all choose to want to go and listen to it, y'all can. But it was this article that Mo had found from 2006. Now, mind you, Mike Jeffries was still very much the CEO. Like he's the CEO, and he came in 1992 and he was gone in 2014. So he was still very much the CEO. That's when Abercrombie and Fitch was at its peak, in my opinion. That's where like you always heard about it. But man, that article right there was crazy. I didn't even bother trying to go looking for it, just for the sake of not wanting to read it. But if y'all want to, he read it on his channel. It's pretty filthy. If you think what I read was bad enough, that one is worse. And that's before all of the stuff that came out now that I just read before this blew up. This was very well when it was still low key and nobody knew who this dude was. That's why I said I truly believe that it goes back further than 2008. I think it goes back a few years. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes back into the 90s. But Mo, I don't know if you're still in the chat, but if you can leave the link to that particular live that you did, I would appreciate it. And the people, if y'all want to go over there and watch it, y'all can go, or just leave the link to your channel. But yeah, that was a wild story right there. But we shall see what happens, because they said Mike Jeffries is not scheduled to go to court until December 12th. So, and it's only October 29th. So if I do decide to pick back up on this story, it'll most likely be around that particular time and see what update they have coming from it. But as of right now, Mike Jeffries is on house arrest. He has an ankle monitor. They said he can only go out for religious reasons, medical appointments, and something else. But that's it. So he's on house arrest until he has to go back to court in December. One of me ancestral incarnation says most of them folk wore A&F, Hollister, American Eagle. American Eagle has some nice. American Eagle was probably one of the few mainstream brands that had some kind of crossover appeal. And I know this because when I was in high school, I went to a majority black high school, and there was a lot of black people that had American Eagle stuff or Urban Outfitters. Y'all remember Urban Outfitters? Now that one was a very popular brand back then in the early 2000s. Urban Outfitters. Shirt says, notice with Diddy, they're asking for people to come forward with this man, Epstein and Peter and Igar. They already had that. Of course. You said is American Eagle still around? I'm not entirely sure. I haven't heard about it in years. Seven says Abercrombie and Hollister was popular. Oh yeah. Back then, it really was. Like I said, I personally didn't wear anything from Abercrombie and Fitch. I never even walked in their store. But that doesn't mean it wasn't popular. It was very popular. Yes, while you talking about the North Face jackets back in the day, in the early 2000s when I was in high school, especially in the area I'm in, North Face was extremely popular. I don't think I knew one person that did not have a North Face jacket back when I was in high school. As soon as it got a little cold, us kids could not wait to pull out that North Face jacket. I knew a girl who I went to high school with. She had a pink North Face jacket. And you know, North Face jackets, the more popular ones were the black ones. Those are the ones that you typically saw the most. But I knew a girl. I didn't know her. Well, I knew her in high school, and she had a pink North Face jacket. And those North Face jackets were, some of them were hard to get back then too, because again, it was a popular jacket. It was it was a brand. It was nothing more than a bubble coat, but it's the fact that it just had North Face on it, just like polo. You can find a polo shirt anywhere with no branding on it. It's a polo shirt, but if it had polo, the logo, then it was a must have. You're praying for the name. Ancestral said North Face and New Balance was the combo. Oh, man, New Balance, those New Balance shoes was another popular shoe brand when I was in high school. If you didn't have any Jordans, you had a pair of New Balances. Those were like the two, when I was in high school, those were like the two top shoes that you always saw, was a pair of J's or some New Balances. Yeah, and landed. I remember Banana Republic. See, seven. See, I was waiting to see if Seven was going to pick up on that. She said New Balance is a Maryland thing for sure. It definitely is. Like, it doesn't matter where in the state of Maryland you were in. It didn't matter if you was in PG County or Baltimore. That New Balance shoe was a staple in the state of Maryland. That's one thing that PG County or the DMV and Baltimore did have in common, was the New Balances. We may be divided on some other things, but that New Balance, that's where there was some commonality. There was with that shoe. That, man, y'all taking me back. Dad Miller said Nike boots. I forgot about the Nike boots. Yeah, the Nike boots. That's why I said us kids growing up couldn't wait for it. That's why honestly a lot of us kids couldn't wait for it to get cold, so you could pull out that North Face and them Nike boots. What's going on, Jalen? Yep, Nike boots, New Balances, North Faces. Yeah, some people wearing Urban Outfitters. Oh, to my people in Maryland, do y'all remember Bonadachi? Do y'all remember Bonadachi? It was another one. Shooters. That was another one. Shooters. That was another brand that was popular in the state as well. I remember when back then when I would go to Waldorf, they had a whole shooter store like that was just dedicated to that. I feel like we're going down memory lane right here, and it took this sick story in order for us to bring all of this stuff up. That's crazy. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, shooters. Yeah, and it's like when I'm thinking of those brands, I keep thinking of it's taking me back to high school because I was in high school from 03 to 07, and I keep thinking about us walking up and down the hallway, and I can see the brands right now in my head. I feel like I'm being mentally transported back to that era, and it's crazy because our class, the class of 07, we were the last class that was able to wear whatever we wanted. After that, that's when they went to uniforms. So we just escaped it. I'm gonna ask my people in Maryland, and I can ask people in the chat, but mainly those in Maryland. For those who are in the state of Maryland, what was the one shoe brand that they always advertised, but you would get clowned to hell and back if you wore them? I want to see what y'all are going to say. I'm going to ask it again. What was the name of the one shoe brand that they always advertised more than any of the other shoes we talked about, but you would get clowned if you ever wore them? I want to see I want to see if we on the same type of timing. No, not Shaq's Wallow J, although you would get clowned for wearing a pair of Shaq's. Not Saucony. No, not Vans. Not Adidas. Not Skechers. It's just Skechers. It's funny because you would get clowned for those, but is this one shoe brand in particular? Church said in California was LA Gear. No, not LA Gear. Man, y'all are not getting it. And it's crazy too, because like I said, if you wore these, you would get clowned for wearing this shoe, and they always advertised it. No, not Fila, not British Knight. Nope, not Reebok. Not Converse, not And1. Jackson, I'm not in your state, but Kmart brand. No, not Kmart brand. Not Pro Wing. No Reebok. No, Buster Brown. My goodness. There it is. Gene got it. K-Swiss. They always advertise K-Swiss, but you would get clowned if you wore a pair of K-Swiss. Anybody from the area knows that to be true. That's why I said somebody from the area was going to get it, but it was K-Swiss. Because they always advertise K-Swiss as this very nice looking shoe, but nobody was messing with no K-Swiss. But y'all want to know what my first big name brand of shoes was? It wasn't even Jordans. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, transparent. I never owned a pair of J's. There's my transparent fashion moment. I never owned a pair of J's. Never really had the knack for the urge to want to. But the first major brand of shoe that I ever owned that was, when I say major, I'm talking about was very mainstream, was Air Force Ones. And this was back when Nelly came out with the song Air Force One. I went right to that Modell. Well, me and my parents went to that Modell's back in the early 2000s and got a pair of those Air Force Ones. And I wore them to school the next day. Was it the next day or whenever it was? Man, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was walking up and down that hallway like I was a damn model, like a shoe model. But yeah, I had a pair of Air Force Ones when I was in middle school. I think I got them. When did that song come out? Like 01 or something like that. So I was maybe 7th grade when I got it. When I got those Air Force Ones out of Modell's, and Modell's is no longer around. Modell's was like the second tier Foot Locker. Like you went to Modell's if you couldn't afford Foot Locker. I don't think that Miller. I don't think Modell's are still open. I don't think they're still around. But Modell's had some good stuff though. They really did have some nice stuff in there. I'd go there before I go to Payless. I put it like that. But let's be real. As much as we clown Payless, Payless was the introductory shoe store for all of us before we discovered Foot Locker and Foot Action and Modell's. But yeah, Modell's is no longer around. Modell's been closed for years now. Modell's probably been closed for about a decade or more now. But yep, I had a pair of white Air Force Ones. I'll never forget it. 7 said, "Don't tell my mother nothing about no Payless." Listen, the older folks, they love them some Payless. They like, you better not slander no Payless around some of these older folks. G said, "I had an old white pair with the neon green Nike sign in the neon green bottom." Miss Nisa said, "Now that I'm older, I only wear Skechers." Hey, you got to do what you got to do, because like the thing is, when you're younger, you dress for the brand when you're younger. But when you get older and your feet start to hurt just out of the blue, then you have to wear according for comfort. Especially if you say work a job where you're constantly standing a lot, you have to wear shoes that are to your comfort level when you get older, because your body just is changing from head to toe. So you just can't just wear anything just because it's not conducive for your feet. Jesse said I'm class of 2005. Oh, that was my 2005. That was my junior year. Yeah, 05, 06. That was my junior year of high school. Now, Ancestral, and to anybody else in this chat, I may be saying something that might be unpopular, but let me highlight this comment. He said, I wear Crocs. I work in a kitchen, so Crocs are comfortable. Listen, when I tell you this right now, I despise Crocs. You will never, ever, ever see me in a pair of Crocs. And if you do, it's because I must have lost a bet. I don't like Crocs. I know they're comfortable, but for me personally, I don't like them. Oh, I feel like I found my tribe because there's some people in here that don't like Crocs too. I felt like I was the only one because I'll never forget. I told somebody years ago, I said, I don't like Crocs. And they was like, their jaw dropped. It's like, oh, I can't believe you said that. I said, believe it. I don't like Crocs. You will never see me spending any type of money on some Crocs. I don't like them. They might be comfortable. I've always heard that. That's fine, but I don't like them. I remember one time somebody had a pair of Crocs, and I just told them I flat out didn't like them, and they said just try the Croc on, and I slid my foot in there, and I took my foot right out. I didn't even walk in it. I don't like them. Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not alone in the chat. At first, I was about to say, oh, Torin, I can't believe you said that. I don't like Crocs. I really don't. Never liked them. Never have. No matter how comfortable they are. Now, how many times people tell me, oh, they're comfortable? I don't like them. Do not bring those Crocs around me. Your Queen Yolanda says, I love me some Crocs. They don't make your feet. Well, that's what will be clearly because the Crocs have them holes in it. If they stink, then that means it's something wrong with your feet. You ain't washing your feet. You got them Yabba Dabba Doo Flintstone bedrock feet. Okay, no matter. Okay, Ancestral. I just had to put it out there. Y'all can hear it in my voice. I don't mess with them Crocs. And it's crazy because if I see somebody wearing Crocs, they could have the nicest fit on. The first thing I'm going to notice is those Crocs. That's going to be the first thing I notice is them Crocs. I'm telling you, no matter what the color, and don't get me started on the people that decide they're going to be all creative with their Crocs and start putting the little stickers on there or the little glitter or the jewelry. I'm like, now you done took an ugly shoe and made it oogly. Jason Models is like Chance. Yeah, I guess you could say Models was like that. Like I said, it was like the next tier under like Foot Locker. It's like Foot Locker. If you couldn't afford to go to Foot Locker, you went to Models. Now, hey, y'all know what I'm talking about when y'all be seeing people wearing them Crocs and they be putting them stickers and them little pins or whatever it is on there. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about when you be seeing them Crocs. I think that's probably what maybe turned me off about them is because probably the first time I ever saw a person wearing them Crocs is they had all that extra stuff on there. I be saying, how does that stuff not just pop off when you walk? I'm like, what if you in a situation, an emergency situation when you got to run? You can't run in them Crocs. You gonna have to take the Crocs off and run on your feet. Oh yeah, Xavier, you missed it. You gonna have to catch the playback. Right now, we just having like a little discussion about these Crocs. Right now, we were just talking about shoes and stuff, but we ended up on these Crocs. Yes, Cosma, the bedazzled ones. Yeah, but yeah, that's my little fashion gripe is those Crocs. Curse the person that created them Crocs. I'm sure they're living nice right now. You know, If I was the one that was creating the Crocs, I mean, I'll be fine with the one that created it, but I probably wouldn't be out there wearing them. But shoot, for that kind of price, I probably would wear them, but I would kick them right on off the minute I was off the stage. Church says what kills me is when they put Crocs in sports mode thinking they're doing. Okay, y'all gotta explain to me because I don't wear Crocs. What is sports mode with Crocs? What is that? And Queens put that too, says you can run sports mode. What is sports mode? Y'all gotta explain that to me because I don't know what a sports mode is when it comes to Crocs. Because like I said, Crocs just look like a shoe you cannot run in. Maneuver says I notice a lot of people in the hospital have yes. That's because, again, why I don't like Crocs. I can see why people wear them because it is a comfortable shoe. It's made for comfort, people who stand for a long time. And in the hospital, you're constantly on your feet. Like you're probably walking 90% of the time. All right, shout out to Church again for being a member for 4 months. He said they lift the back handle of the shoe. That still wouldn't be enough to make me go buy a pair of Crocs. I don't care. Oh, that's what those are. Oh, you know what? I've seen those. Okay, I know what you're talking about now. I've seen them. It has like it's like a hook on the back of it to secure, almost like a sandal. Basically, is what you're saying. It's almost like a sandal. It has that part on the back where it holds the heel in place, so if you run it, it won't slip off your feet. Because I've seen the one, of course, that you slide your feet in, and it doesn't have it there. But I've seen the other ones where you kind of have to slide your foot in and hook the back, so it's like a sandal. Oh, still ain't buying them. That literally reminds me of a sandal. Like that's when I saw that, it reminded me of a sandal. And speaking of sandals, y'all, did any of y'all grow up in? This can go for the women and the men in the chat, but mainly the men. When y'all was little kids, did your parents put y'all in those Jesus sandals? Did they make you wear them brown Jesus sandals, or as I like to call them, the cookout sandals? I know my parents did, and I hated them because like they felt so uncomfortable on my feet. I was like, can we get somewhere so I could sit down so I could take these sandals off? And they were like to strap them in so tight to the point where you took them off, you had a strap print on the top of your feet, and they made so much noise. I'm like, how am I supposed to play with these loud shoes on and I'm supposed to be quiet? Running, and all you hear is, hold on, y'all. This is what you hear. That's what I used to hate about them sandals. But our parents used to think, oh, they're so cute in your little sandals. I said, yeah, because you don't gotta wear them. Shout out to Church for the 2. So yes, they did. I'm way too amused. Brother man said I used to tap dance on them. They were like some tap shoes. Because they did sound like tap dancing shoes. Jennifer said I had on Jesus Walk on Water 7. Y'all are crazy in this chat. Queen said, I like those brown sandals. Those those are the starter sandals. Like all us kids growing up had those sandals. And then it's like when you got older, if you still preferred to wear sandals, then you moved on up and got your own sandals. And like a lot of the girls would get those multicolored ones or the ones in different colors. I remember, speaking of the girls, now the girls can speak to this one. To the ladies in the chat, when you was a little girl, especially if you was like a young, like you was a girl, like maybe a teenager in the early 2000s. Do y'all remember the shoes? They were like sandals, but you slid into them and they had that one prong right there next to the big toe, in between the big toe and the next toe, and it had the butterfly on it. Do y'all remember that one? And shout out to Miss Jalen for the 2. This is ladies remember the jellies and candy story. Well, she's talking to y'all. She ain't talking to me. But it was I remember, especially when I was in middle school, I used to see girls wearing them all the time, and they had a butterfly on it. Oh, those were the. Oh, those were. Oh, okay. Oh, that's what they were. Okay. See, okay. Well, you just answered. Well, I never knew what they were called. I just knew that it had a butterfly on it. I remember. I remember one time I saw one girl had those on. She had worn them things out so bad. One of the butterflies was missing a wing, so it was so stiff. I'm like, if you don't just throw them things away and get a new pair. I mean, the whole wing was gone. I'm like, just get rid of it and just get a new pair. Exactly. The butterfly can't fly no more, not with one wing. Oh man, but anyway, y'all, let me go ahead and shut this down. This was good. I think I decided to like just go into this little tangent right here at the end because I had to wash the filth off of us from what I read with the story initially and just kind of lighten the mood a little bit. But speaking of lightening the mood, tomorrow, if you are a member of the channel, and shout out to the 99-cent super sticker to church, I appreciate it. If you are a member of the channel tomorrow, I will be doing the day or the night before Halloween stream on the channel, but for members only. So if you are a member, you saw the post go out. So you saw it, but if you aren't a member, make sure that you join. I know DSB, they're not in the chat right now, but they've been giving out all kinds of memberships to everybody for the last couple of weeks. So y'all are going to be in tomorrow. But we will be doing the night before Halloween stream tomorrow, members only at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm very looking forward to that. Shout out to everybody that came through for this stream. Shout out to all the members, all the replay gang, everybody over on Patreon. Again, Patreon, we will be getting a new video at 8 o'clock tomorrow. So tonight. So be on the lookout for that. Everybody on Instagram, Twitter, Discord, all of that good stuff. We will be, shout out to each and every one of you. The political blitz continues tomorrow. Oh, if y'all thought what I had to say about Obama today was something, wait till you see the subject matter of tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be, y'all gonna see a side of me that y'all hadn't seen in quite some time. Y'all almost saw it in today's video, but tomorrow I let the gloves come all the way off. But y'all will see what I mean tomorrow. But with that being said, everyone, y'all enjoy the rest of your evening. I will talk to you all tomorrow. Be safe and be one.